Reneé Rapp, a rising star in music and acting, recently found herself at the center of an online storm after a candid moment on the Call Her Daddy podcast with host Alex Cooper. The 25-year-old singer and actress, known for her roles in Mean Girls and The Sex Lives of College Girls, made headlines when she admitted she had no idea who Joe Rogan was, prompting a mix of amusement, support, and backlash from fans and critics alike. Her blunt question, "Who the F is Joe Rogan?" has sparked a viral debate, with some praising her honesty and others, particularly Rogan's dedicated fanbase, taking offense at her apparent ignorance of the influential podcaster. The incident occurred during a lively discussion on the podcast, where Cooper posed a hypothetical scenario to Rapp, asking what she would do if forced to have dinner with a straight white man whose personality revolved around Joe Rogan being his religion. Rapp's response was immediate and unfiltered. She confessed she didn't know who Rogan was, despite having heard his name mentioned in passing, including in a TikTok video she saw earlier that day. "I was like, what is that?" she said, emphasizing that this wasn't the first time she'd encountered Rogan's name but still had no context for who he was. Her genuine confusion led her to grab her phone mid-interview to look him up, adding a humorous element to the exchange. Cooper, amused by Rapp's reaction, tried to provide context by referencing Rogan's past work, asking if Rapp was familiar with Fear Factor, the reality show he hosted from 2001 to 2006, or the Ultimate Fighting Championship (UFC), where Rogan has been a long-time commentator. Rapp's responses only deepened the comedic moment. "Like UFC fights? He's a fighter? He's my height," she mused, noting Rogan's 5 feet 8 inches stature and expressing surprise that someone of his height could be involved in fighting. "I guess you don't have to be tall to be a fighter," she added, her confusion endearing her to some listeners while perplexing others. The exchange quickly went viral, with clips of the podcast circulating on social media platforms like Instagram and X. Fans of Rapp, particularly younger audiences, found her honesty refreshing and relatable, with one Instagram user declaring, "Who the F is Joe Rogan is maybe my favorite quote ever quoted." Another supporter wrote, "So many older people on here embarrassing themselves." She wasn't dissing him, she genuinely didn't know who he was. "She's young and cool, of course she doesn't know who he is because he's neither." These reactions highlighted a generational divide, with Rapp's Gen Z fanbase embracing her as a voice of their cohort, unburdened by the cultural touchstones of older generations. However, not all reactions were positive. Joe Rogan, host of The Joe Rogan Experience, one of the world's most popular podcasts, commands a loyal following, particularly among young men. His fans took Rapp's comments as a slight, with some interpreting her ignorance as dismissive or disrespectful. One user commented, "Dude has the most successful podcast in the world, she's clearly taking the pee," suggesting that Rapp's claim of not knowing Rogan was disingenuous. The backlash reflects the polarizing nature of Rogan's public persona, as his podcast, known for its long-form conversations and controversial guests, has made him a cultural lightning rod. Rapp's moment of confusion wasn't just a fleeting podcast anecdote. It sparked a broader conversation about celebrity, influence, and generational differences. Rogan, a former stand-up comedian, actor, and UFC commentator, has built a media empire through his podcast, which attracts millions of listeners per episode. His appeal lies in his unfiltered approach, covering topics from politics and science to psychedelics and fitness. For his fans, Rogan represents a countercultural figure who challenges mainstream narratives, making Rapp's lack of awareness a point of contention. Yet, for Rapp's supporters, her unfamiliarity with Rogan underscores her authenticity, as she remains focused on her own creative world rather than mainstream media figures. The podcast exchange also highlighted Rapp's quick wit and unapologetic personality. As she and Cooper laughed through the moment, Rapp's willingness to admit her ignorance without pretense resonated with fans who admire her for being real. Her career, which includes starring as Regina George in the Mean Girls musical and a role in The Sex Lives of College Girls, has been marked by a bold, unfiltered approach, both in her performances and public persona. This incident only amplified her appeal among younger audiences who value authenticity over polished media savvy. The controversy also raises questions about the cultural relevance of figures like Rogan in different demographic circles. While Rogan's podcast dominates streaming platforms like Spotify, its audience skews heavily male and slightly older, with a significant portion of listeners in their 20s and 30s. Rapp, at 25, represents a younger, more diverse audience that may not intersect with Rogan's sphere of influence. Her focus on music and acting, combined with her active presence on platforms like TikTok, places her in a different cultural orbit, one where Rogan's name might not carry the same weight. As the viral moment spread, it became a case study in how social media amplifies misunderstandings and divides. Rapp's fans rallied around her, celebrating her as a queen of Gen Z for her unpretentious demeanor, while Rogan supporters saw her comments as emblematic of a broader disconnect between generations. The debate underscores the fragmented nature of modern media, where cultural icons like Rogan may be ubiquitous in some circles but virtually unknown in others. For Rapp, the incident is unlikely to derail her rising career, as she continues to promote her music and explore new acting opportunities, including a dream role on Law and Order, SVU. Ultimately, Rapp's podcast moment is a reminder of the power of authenticity in an era of curated celebrity images. Her willingness to admit she didn't know who Rogan was, coupled with her humorous attempt to piece together his identity, endeared her to fans who value relatability. While the backlash from Rogan's fans highlights the tribal nature of online fandoms, it also underscores Rapp's ability to spark conversation and remain unapologetically herself. As she navigates her career, this viral moment will likely be remembered as a defining example of her candid charm.